President Biden issued a stark warning for voters about what's at stake this November, saying the future of democracy is on the ballot. In a speech just blocks from the Capitol, the site of the January 6th insurrection, the president warned against candidates who are undermining faith in voting and pushing conspiracies.
There are candidates running for every level of office in America, for governor, Congress, Attorney General, Secretary of State, who won't commit. They will not commit to accepting the results of elections that they're running in. This is a path to chaos in America. It's unprecedented. It's unlawful. And it's un-American. As I've said before, you can't love your country only when you win.
For more, we're joined by NBC News senior digital White House reporter Shannon Pettypiece. So, Shannon, the president has been hammering this theme in his speeches recently. Of course, he had that big speech on this topic in Philadelphia in September. I think some observers would argue it's the strongest closing argument that he can make right now. So who's he trying to reach with this message? What was notable about the speech?
Well, this isn't necessarily the speech that pollsters and Democratic strategists have been saying they want to hear from the president. What they have been telling us is they want to hear the president and Democrats talking about more about the economy, because that's the number one issue they're hearing about from voters. But clearly, this is an issue that the president wanted to talk about. There have been concerns about the threat to democracy in his speeches and remarks throughout his presidency, even before he was president. You noted he gave that pretty high-profile speech back in Philadelphia in September on this issue. And one person familiar with the planning told us that there were obviously a number of recent developments that added to the urgency driving the president to give this speech now. And a key one of those was the attack on House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's husband, Paul Pelosi, who was attacked in his home recently, as well as growing concerns that some Republicans may not accept the results of the election, and that we could see a revival of a lot of these conspiracy theories in 2020 come again in 2022, something that the president believes continues to risk to undermine the very foundations of democracy that the country are built on.
Although he didn't mention him by name, the current president took aim at the former president, Donald Trump. What did he have to say about Trump?
Yeah, he was very clear here in blaming former President Trump for this rise in election denialism, for the continued spread among Republicans of these debunked conspiracy theories that undermine the 2020 election results. Here's a little bit more of what that president said last night.
American democracy is under attack because the defeated former president of the United States refuses to accept the results of the 2020 election. He refuses to accept the will of the people. He refuses to accept the fact that he lost. He has abused his power and put the loyalty to himself before loyalty to the Constitution. And he's made a big lie an article of faith in the MAGA Republican Party.
So very clearly drawing that link between what the president sees as these threats to democracy and the actions by former President Trump.
You also mentioned the attack on House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's husband. Let's listen to what the president had to say about that.
This institution, this intimidation, this violence against Democrats, Republicans, and nonpartisan officials just doing their jobs are the consequence of lies told for power and profit, lies of conspiracy and malice, lies repeated over and over to generate a cycle of anger, hate, vitriol, and even violence.
Quickly, Shannon, the attack on Pelosi's husband really did shape some of this speech, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was what the president opened his speech with, and some of his most powerful material there. And as much as a call for people to come out and vote for candidates that are supporting democracy, it was a call for an end to political violence and this violent rhetoric that, of course, is increasingly, as the president noted there, becoming an issue as we get closer and closer to these midterm elections.
All right, Shannon, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.